Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Turbo. I am a technical consultant here at Somerford. I work with Okta and Splunk technically, so I know both solutions quite well. And today's webinar is basically about integrating Splunk with Okta and Okta with Splunk. So the perfect topic to to talk through. Um, so yeah, let's have a look at the agenda for today. So we're looking at just a quick introduction to what is Okta, what is Splunk, looking at the integrations available for Splunk and Okta, of course, and the benefits of those. Just a deeper dive into single sign-on with Splunk and a deeper dive into the Okta Identity Cloud add-on for Splunk, which is a way of bringing in data to Splunk, as you'll see later. I've also got a live demo to show you, and then we've got some final thoughts and a Q&A at the end. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the questions box within the webinar. You should just see it on the little panel that you should have up. And you can just pop your questions in there, and I'll answer them at the end at the Q&A section even. But yeah, let's get started. So first of all, very quick introduction. What is Okta? Obviously, Okta is a cloud-based identity and access management solution. It allows you to automate your lifecycle with identities, lock down user access to your corporate applications, and provide single sign-on into almost any application, whether that be cloud-based. And also there is some on-prem solutions available with Okta. Integrates directly with your organization's existing directories. So if you've got Active Directory, if you've got G Suite, for example, you using Azure AD, Okta can integrate with those directories. And also with 4,000 plus applications available out of the box, you'll be able to find quite a few of your solutions in there and integrate quite quickly with them where that's available. Obviously, because Okta runs on an integrated platform, it's all in the cloud. It's a SaaS solution. You can implement a service quite quickly at a large scale, and also it's very scalable with a low cost. And you can see here we've got single sign-on. So these are the different elements available within the Okta identity solution. You've got single sign-on, which is your single sign-on solution to your applications. You've got universal directory. You've got lifecycle management, API access management, and you've got adaptive multi-factor authentication and mobility management as well. So we've got some features around that, particularly with things like device trust and ensuring that access is only available on corporate devices. But yeah, these are just some of the solutions available within the Okta platform. There are others as well, and we might discuss some of these as we go through today. And just a quick one on Splunk as well. So Splunk enables you to search, analyze, visualize data gathered from all the components of your IT infrastructure or business or security solutions. It's taking data from pretty much anywhere, but that includes websites, applications, sensors, devices, IoT, your standard IT equipment as well, things like firewalls, network devices, etc., etc. Pretty much anywhere, anything that produces a log output, we can probably ingest in Splunk, and that's one of the big advantages of it. After you define a data source, so after you've set up ingesting your data in Splunk, you can basically pass it into a series of individual events, and you can view, search, create dashboards, reports, alerts, correlate across different data sets. Pretty much sky's the limit, really, once you've got the data in Splunk, and with the powerful SPL language as well, which is Splunk's search language. You can create quite powerful dashboards, which be very valuable. One of the key flexibilities with Splunk is also customizability, just a way to quickly create dashboards of varying degrees of, well, basically very particular to your requirements. Create quick dashboards that are based on those, and that's quite a powerful tool as well. Just some of the different solutions with Splunk. So you've got Splunk Cloud, which is Splunk Enterprise. Splunk Cloud, which is basically Splunk's solution for the cloud. So if you don't want to have Splunk on premise, there is a full managed Splunk available in the cloud. And then we've also got Splunk Enterprise, which is Splunk's on-premise solution. So that will be the instance that you'll see in the demo today. We're using a Splunk Enterprise instance for this, but I'll discuss that a little bit later as well. We've got Splunk Phantom as well. The Splunk plus VictorOps and Signal FX. More information about these solutions available on our website. And if you do want to know more, just get in touch with us. I would be happy to walk through these other solutions as well that Splunk have. But today we'll be focusing on mainly Splunk Enterprise and to some degree Splunk Cloud as well, with these integrations with Okta. So, what are the integrations available in Okta and in Splunk, and how can we integrate each other? So, just very quick bullet points summary: what's actually available. So, if you're going from Splunk to Okta, we've got the Okta Identity Add-on available, which can very quickly and easily pull in your system logs and other event data from Okta into Splunk. And it's very straightforward to set up as well, which is one of the key things with that add-on. And we'll show that a little bit later as well and go into more detail. Obviously, with that data, you can create reports and dashboards to monitor Okta tenants. So if you've got key requirements for reporting from Okta, and maybe you find that the reports available in Okta don't quite match your requirements, obviously with the power of Splunk, you'll be able to create custom searches, custom reports to meet those, and that's one of the benefits too. We've also got with that Okta Identity Add-on, there's also actually alert actions available. So if you create an alert in Splunk and you want something to happen from that alert triggering, so for example here I've just put you can suspend a user in Okta if an alert gets triggered. So I mean you might see some nefarious activity. Something doesn't look quite right, and you might want an alert to trigger as a result of that, and suspend the user that you see that is doing that. So just say that if you had a security incident, really. But anything, the sky's the limit there. If you've got other requirements for alerts and you want something to happen in Okta, you can do that with those alert actions. And then on the other side of the scale, so we've got Okta to Splunk, obviously integrating single sign-on using SAML with Okta is perfectly possible for both Splunk Enterprise and Splunk Cloud. So just be aware that those are the two solutions that we're focusing on today. There is a integration available in the OIN, the Okta Integration Network, for both Splunk Enterprise and Splunk Cloud. So it does make things a lot easier to set up as well with those out-of-the-box solutions. And you'll see that in the demo too. And also, as a result of really having single sign-on, you can then use your Okta MFA solution with Splunk. So if you wanted step-up authentication for certain admins, maybe Splunk admins, you can customize and configure your MFA policies for access to Splunk and implement MFA on the top of that. And you'll see that again in the demo as well. And also just a few other things that are available, but we're not going to be able to show this today. The new solution, Okta Workflows, which allows you to integrate with REST APIs. And in this example, we're looking at Splunk's REST API. And we can perform actions in Splunk based on Okta events. So similar to on the other side of the scale where we've got Okta alert actions to perform actions in Okta based on Splunk events, we can also do the same. So if we have an Okta event, we can perform actions in Splunk. And that's one of the big benefits there. So a particular example I've got here, if you delete a user in Splunk. So yeah, basically when a user gets deactivated in Okta, we'll just go ahead and offboard that user in Splunk by deleting them. And that's just one particular example. But Okta Workflows, if you want to know more about that, just get in contact with us. I think we've also got some events coming up on that as well, which you can refer to. But Okta Workflows also available, and also something that you can integrate Splunk with. So yeah, some of the key benefits: store Okta system logs for longer. So by default, Okta system logs are actually only available for 3 months, but maybe you've got a business requirement or even a legal requirement to keep logs for longer. So by using Splunk and getting your logs out of Okta and putting them into Splunk, obviously you can control how long that data has been retained for. So you can configure that for say up to a year, and then you wouldn't have to rely on the Okta retention period there, or have to use that. So you can store your Okta system logs for longer, basically. Obviously, one of the key things as well, once you've got the Okta data in Splunk, it's in a central place, so you can actually start using Okta data with other data. So, I mean, for example, if you've got application data, you can then start correlating that across each other and produce more complex reports based on that as well. Creating customized Okta reports. So Okta is great. It has a set of out-of-the-box reports that you can use. Most common scenarios are covered, so there is a lot available there out of the box. But let's say you've got a very key custom requirement. Using the power of Splunk, we can create customized and completely business-specific Okta reports and dashboards as well. We can increase the visibility of existing Splunk solutions. So one of the benefits of the add-on for Okta in Splunk is that it's SIM compliant, which means we can start integrating it with enterprise security, for example, and just increase our security visibility in Splunk by using that Okta data. So that's one of the benefits as well, that you can integrate it with those existing Splunk solutions. You've got also to obviously secure Splunk with existing user identities and providing that step-up authentication using Okta Verify and MMFA. So making sure that access to Splunk is controlled, making sure that users can't bypass Okta or log in from somewhere else where you don't want them to. Obviously, integrating Okta SSO with Splunk allows you to achieve that. And then the last point I've got here is just to manage that Splunk user lifecycle management. So if a user leaves the company, just making sure that when they do leave, they definitely don't have access once they've left. So using Okta to make sure that that's the case and there's no holes that are left once the user has left the organization. So that's the key benefits. Just a bit more information on single sign-on and how it kind of works. So with Splunk in particular. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, I think Splunk Cloud and Splunk Enterprise, they fully support the SAML 2.0 standard. Obviously, that's great for Okta. Okta works really well with SAML, so it's very easy to set up. So yeah, Splunk Cloud, Splunk Enterprise, if you're running, I think it's from quite a while ago now, 6.3, I believe, onwards, you can integrate SAML with Splunk. So any modern or recent versions of Splunk, you shouldn't have any problems integrating with Okta there with SSO. Information from Okta to Splunk, so you get that gets mapped across as part of SAML and single sign-on. So things like we can take the identity information out, identity attributes even. So things like the username, their email address and username can be mapped across from Okta to Splunk, so that Splunk has that information already. We also support what's known as SAML just-in-time provisioning. That's supported by Splunk, which also means that you don't actually have to manually create new users in Splunk. So you're saving a bit of time there as well. You're not having to create the user in Okta and then, okay, now we've created the user in Okta, we're going to have to manually create them in Splunk. Okta will do that automatically for you. Once you've created the user in Okta, you don't have to do anything else. The user will just be automatically there in Splunk once they log in for the first time. And we might be able to show that in the demo as well. Groups in Okta, they can be mapped to Splunk roles. So typically, if you've got your groups, that could be AD groups from your source directory. You can map those AD groups, for example, to Splunk roles. So, the Splunk default roles, admin, power user, or just the user role. They can be mapped across to any of your groups that you've got in Okta already. And we will definitely show that in the demo as well. If anything does go wrong, as is typical really with SAML, if anything does go wrong, there is an emergency backend available just to access without SAML if needed. So it's just a troubleshooting step there really that I'm pointing out. There is a way to get in if something does go wrong. Yeah, and also if users are deactivated in Okta, then they can't access Splunk at that point really. Because they must authenticate with Okta, there's no other way in. So even if somehow the user was still left active in Splunk after they've left, they still can't get in because the Okta user has been deactivated. The only way in is through your policies and through your security policies, through Okta, and then into Splunk. So there's no other way around it. Just on the right-hand side here, I've just got a quick description of SAML. It's an open standard, so that's one of the benefits as well of Splunk supporting that, and also Okta supporting that. There's lots of information available around SAML, and it's also one of the universally accepted standards for single sign-on. And then the Okta Identity Cloud add-on for Splunk. So we've just talked about single sign-on. Now we're going to talk about logging and reporting from Okta into Splunk. So if you look on Splunk Base, which is Splunk's app store, in essence, there's an app known as the Okta Identity Cloud add-on for Splunk, and it provides an easy way to basically gather logs and gather information and data from your Okta tenant. So install that app on a Splunk instance, configure it, and you're up and away, really, getting your logs in. Yeah, as you can see there, it collects Okta system log. It collects a snapshot of users, groups, and apps, so you can see who's in Okta and who's and what their status is as well. To set it up, you have to just configure an API key. It's quite simple to do. I'll probably show you that on the demo later. Yeah, in a distributed environment, just make sure you install it on a Splunk heavy forwarder. We can also support it on single instance installations. It's also available for Splunk Cloud, so it's very ideal for if you are using Splunk Cloud, the Splunk Cloud IDM, or the Inputs Data Manager. It's a great place to put this add-on to collect the data from Okta, and it means you won't have to have anything on-prem to do that. So it's very ideal for there. And then, as I said, it includes custom alert actions as well, which allows for Okta changes based on events in Splunk. And you can see some screenshots on the right-hand side there. So that's the listing in Splunk Base. And then below is just a screenshot from that add-on. And obviously, once we go through the demo, you'll see a lot more of that. So, demo. So this is my Okta tenant, just first of all. I have set this up already, but I will show you how it's been set up. So we'll run through that too. But first of all, I'm just going to show you single sign-on into Splunk with MFA. So I'm going to log in as Stacy.West here. She's a member of the IT Ops team. Okay, so just log in. Okay, and she's logged into her Okta portal here. We're just going to hit on the Splunk app icon that we've got in our dashboard. And very simply, you can see, first of all, we're being asked to verify with Okta Verify, so our MFA factor here. I'm just going to send the push notification to my phone. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see this, but I am just going onto my phone now and just hitting yes, it's me on the notification. So I'm just saying that, yep, this is me, and that I do want to log in. Okay, you can see now, and yeah, very quickly that went through. We're now logged into Splunk. Nothing, well, it took just a few seconds there really, and now we're logged in. So that went very quickly. You can see I'm logged in as Stacy West. If I just go to, I think I can go to account settings, you can see her full name, her email address has been passed across, and all of her information is there. She's an administrator in Okta, so she can do pretty much anything. But if we look at the, let's have a look at the Splunk settings here and how this has been configured. So we've just got the standard Splunk rows at the moment. So admin can delete power and user. If we look at the authentication method, this is where we configured SAML with Splunk. Under SAML settings, you can see these are the row mappings that I mentioned previously. So we have these two groups in Okta. We've got an IT ops group and we've also got a sales group. And we're mapping those to these Splunk rows. And you can see they're enabled as well. So I can configure any group in Okta. So this is my Okta group. And then I can configure any Splunk row that I want those users mapped to when they log in. So I could just say that, and then I've just created a new map in there. But that's the mapping available. If we look at the SAML configuration, I won't touch on this too much. There is a lot more information in our Splunk blog that we've got available, but this is just a setup process really for setting up SAML with Splunk. Obviously you have to exchange the metadata files between Okta and Splunk. It's pretty standard really for SAML. Configure the single sign-on URLs, certificate information, and just entity ID as well. But we'll run through that. More information about that is available on our blog. But yeah, generally it's just a case of setting it up pretty much. And yeah, that's cool. So that's the map row maps there. If we look on the Okta side, so I will just sign out of Stacy here, and I will just go into admin. In the Okta admin console, if we just go to the applications, I'll just search for Splunk. So we've named the app Splunk SH1, so this is our search head. You can see that what we've done is we've assigned IT ops. So these are our AD groups. We've assigned IT ops and sales to this group, to this application. And you can see Stacy, Rafi, and Casper are assigned to that. If we look under general, we've just put in our Splunk URL. So where our Splunk instance is, under sign on. So one of the things in here is we've configured single logout, so that when we log out of Splunk, we'll log out of Okta as well, so it's completely in sync. Under row, we've got matches.star. So this just basically just defines what rows will be sent across to Splunk. So what groups in Okta will Splunk be able to see? In this example, I've just put .star because we can control that in Splunk, and that's fairly straightforward. So we're just using the regular expression there, .star, which generally means everything. We'll just send across every group that a user is a member of, and then we'll control that in Splunk, basically. We have to set up our certificate. One of the best things about Okta as well, with their out-of-the-box integrations, there's always setup instructions available. So one of the benefits here is how to configure SAML 2.0. There's full instructions available on most of these apps, and that's just from the Okta side. It's not even from the Splunk docs. It's just Okta's providing their own docs for this application, and that's quite useful as well. You can see the metadata as well. You can just grab that. Entity ID, that's one of the important fields that we have to enter in. So I just put Splunk SH1 there. And then also the Okta username format, or the username format we want to use. So when Stacy's logged into Okta, her username is stacy.west@jtad.local, and that's because we've specified that the username is going to be that, but we can configure usernames to be pretty much anything based on any attribute pretty much in Okta. So it could be the email address, it could be, say, the AD SAM account name, it could be the UPN, or it could be a mixture as well using custom, and then you can just create an expression to configure what the Splunk usernames are going to be. That's one of the powerful things about that, is attribute mapping between Okta and Splunk. But I will leave that as is, so I'll just hit cancel there as well. I'll just show you the under add application. If I just search Splunk, you'll see the integrations available. I'll click see all results so you can see the search results. Splunk Cloud and Splunk Enterprise, both available, both very similar integration steps, and both, if you follow our blog at somerfordassociates.com, which I'll provide a link for at the end of the session, both can apply to this. You've also got Splunk Phantom in here, and also the Splunk Addon for Okta, which is the integration to get logs out of Okta into Splunk. So it just talks about the Splunk Addon for Okta, allows the Splunk administrator to collect data from Okta, basically, and we'll show that. So out of the box integration is available for Splunk there, and our blog will help you or guide you through setting that up, as I have done in this demo here. So that's that's from the Splunk side. So sorry, from the Okta side. Looking at Okta now, looking at Splunk now. Sorry, I keep getting mixed up there. If I go to Splunk Enterprise, you can see I've got the Okta Identity Cloud add-on installed. A very simple download from Splunk Base. So this is just the Splunk Base listing. If you just search, I think pretty much if you just search Okta, it will come straight up. Add-on is free, so you just download it from Splunk Base, and then just install the app in Splunk, basically. And that takes just a few seconds to do. Under Splunk Manage Apps, and you can install apps and file, and just choose the Okta add-on and go ahead and upload that app and install it. Obviously, if you're on a distributed environment of Splunk, installation steps for the app may differ slightly, but for a single instance, it's very straightforward to do, and you can get up and running quite quickly. But once you do have it installed, it will appear on the left-hand side under your apps list. If I click on the add-on, you'll see that we get a UI for configuration and inputs. There's also Okta stats here as well. But if we just go to configuration, first thing we have to do with the add-on is the Okta accounts. So once this loads here, you can see I've got my Okta account configured. I'll just hit edit on there so you can see it. That's what I've named it. That's our Okta domain, so that's our Okta tenant that we're specifying. So you can see when I go to my apps, it's just this URL here and this domain in particular. That's our Okta domain. And then also the Okta API token, which is also very important. In Okta, what you have to do there is basically configure an API token so that Splunk can communicate with Okta. Under Okta admin, if you just go to security and API and tokens, you can very quickly just create a token which you can use with Splunk. And you can see the one I've configured here, just named it Splunk, and it's on the Splunk service account. A read-only admin is all you need to do that, so you don't have to have super admin privileges on that token, because all Splunk's doing is reading system logs. It doesn't need anything else. It just needs read-only privileges, and that's all you'll need to get logged into Splunk. So yeah, that's once you've got your token, it's just a case of putting your API token in and hitting save, basically. You can configure, if you've got multiple tenants of Okta, you can configure multiple tenants in here, so you just can add more accounts in if you need to. Once you've done that, under inputs, you've got your different data inputs here. So you've got Okta apps, Okta groups, Okta system log, and Okta users. Now, so these are the different event types or events that you can get out of Okta into Splunk. Obviously, the key one being the Okta system log, because that's basically all the events that happen in Okta. If a user logs in, if a user signs into an application, if a user gets locked out, anything really that happens in Okta would end up in the system log. And that's the one we really want to monitor. So what we've configured there, if I hit edit so you can see it, we've just got an interval of 60 seconds. So every 60 seconds, we're just collecting the latest events. We're storing it in our Splunk index, and we're after the system logs. So we're just collecting logs basically, and then what Okta account I want to use. And that's set up quite easily there. We've got groups, apps, and users, which are snapshots basically. So it's every 1 day, so every 86,400 seconds, which is 1 day, we'll collect a snapshot of the users in Okta, who they are, what status they're in. So if they're active, if they're locked out, if they're say suspended, and also a bit about their profile as well, so who they are, obviously, and some of their attributes too. Groups, so group information basically. If they're an AD group, if it's that could be a G Suite group, could be any sort of group really. All your Okta groups in Okta would be a snapshot taken every day, and that would be ingested into Splunk. And then the same for apps as well. So we'll collect the applications on a snapshot once per day, and that will go into index equals Okta. So yeah, we've just really gone ahead, click create new input, given it a name, given it an interval, index we want to send it into, what metric, and then what Okta account we want to use. And you can create as many as you want of these as needed, really. So yeah, that's very straightforward. That's literally the setup for the Okta add-on. Once you've got that, you should start getting data into Splunk, basically. If we have a look at, I'll just show you the raw data and what that looks like. So if I just do index equals Okta here, last 24 hours should be fine. So the raw data gets ingested as JSON format. One of the benefits of JSON data in Splunk is that all the fields are extracted automatically. So it's quite readable from that perspective with Splunk. So this particular event, let's just use this as an example. What was happening here looks like it was a user who was accessing the Okta admin application. We can see who did it. So it was me, basically, the Okta admin, and display name. You can see things like, yeah, so this is authentication context. So potentially more information could be provided there if it was necessary. What the message is. Yeah, and also UUID, and there's loads of fields that are available in here. But I won't run through all those. Of course, this is just the raw data, and it's not really that interesting at the moment when you're looking at it from this point of view. It's not very friendly, but yeah. So once you've got the data in Splunk, obviously you want to start creating some dashboards and some reports. So I've got some particular examples that I can show you today. So what I've created here is just two quick dashboards. I've created an app for this as well. I call it SSO Okta. We can go to the users. So this is just an example of the snapshot. So very simply, really, all I'm doing here is just providing a table of the users in Okta when they were created. So yeah, we've got about 10 users here. What their email address is, what their name is, what's their details. So these are all fake, for example, but yeah, it could be primary phone number, mobile phone number. You've got information around when the user was created and when they were last updated. Really basic information, but quite useful just to see as an overview of the users, pretty much. And then also what status they are. So we can look at things like if they're locked out, we can look at the locked out user status. And we can see we've got this user who's currently locked out. And we'll see more on that in a minute. We default to active here. We've got an audit as well, so we can see if there's any users that have been created in Okta recently. So we've got one event there. Any users that have been deactivated, or any users that have been deleted as well. You'll see that in an audit dashboard that we've got within here. Any user profile changes as well. So has an admin made any changes to any user profiles? So in this case, it looks like we've let's just use Splunk service. So we've edited Splunk services MFA enable attribute and also their department as well. And then just at the bottom here, just another example, I've got a table just showing you when AD user imports have been started. Yeah, just very useful information, really, and an audit of any activity to users or any changes to users. And you can select the view there, and it's just a very quick dashboard that I've created. We've also got login audit, just another example of data from Okta. So you can just see how many successful logons there have been, how many failed logons. I will just expand this time range a little bit because I wanted just to show the lockouts as well. These 6 hours should be enough. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we've got 20 successful logins in the last 6 hours. There's been 10 failed as well. Wonder why that is. And then we've also got one user account lockout. I've got a time chart, just an example really. So these are showing you your failed and successful events over time. So you've got some successful logins. And then if you look here, you can see actually at around, looks like around 10:15 today, there was a spike in failed logins. And you can also see this dashed line that's kind of near there as well. And that dashed line is a lockout event. So obviously there looks like it's been someone's obviously entered their password wrong quite a few times. In this example, it says 9 times, and because of that, they've been locked out. So this is just a time chart showing you any login events and any lockout events as well over time. Got things like top logins, so who's logged in the most or who's been the most active in Okta in the past, well, in this example, 6 hours, but we can expand that as needed, and the percentage of those logins as well. More information around those failed logins. So you can see here it is 10:16. Looks like Casper has entered his credentials wrong 4 times, and then as a result of that, he's been locked out, and now he can't log in. You can also see my failed attempt here, just join earlier in this demo when I got my password wrong. You can see I've just got this failed because I got my password wrong, but yeah. So that's logged there, and then we've also got the lockout event as well. So in addition to seeing the failed logins, we can see when Casper was actually finally logged out, and he was locked out at 10:16 today. And you can see, yeah, so that's the time chart really. So that's just a very quick example of some of the dashboards that you could create. There's a lot more you could do. You can create an entire app out of this data, and it's all really useful data. As I say, it's also SIM compliant. So if you've got any existing dashboards that uses this common information model in Splunk, you should be able to quite quickly get this Okta data into those dashboards. And that's also a good thing for enterprise security as well. It'll integrate quite well there in those existing data models that you've got. But yeah, I just wanted to show you some very quick examples of what I've created earlier. There's a lot more you can do. Anything that gets logged in the system log will end up in Splunk. So at the Okta developer website, you'll see a list of event types. These are all the possible event types that would be in the system log basically, and you can see there's a whole load available. So any of these events you could potentially report on in Splunk. Obviously, some of them aren't really that useful, but some definitely will be, and that's all in the raw data. So you pretty much have visibility on everything in Okta as a result of installing that add-on and just getting your data in really. But yeah, that's a quick demo really of single sign-on into Splunk, and also getting data in from Okta into Splunk basically. Just some final thoughts. So we just come to the end of the webinar here. Some of the blogs that are available. So previously I've written some blogs on setting up single sign-on to Splunk using Okta. If you just go to, obviously I've got a shortened link here, just bit.ly/Splunk SSO Okta. You should get to that. And also I've also got another blog which is based on ingesting Okta logs into Splunk. And that's available at the Somerford website via this shortened link, so bit.ly Okta logs into Splunk. I've just shortened the links there because obviously it's easier to remember, because a long URL, you're not going to remember that during this webinar, but that should make things a little bit easier. So that's why I've put those there. But yeah, blogs available that you can refer to, and if you have any questions at all, of any issues setting that up, you can obviously get in contact with myself or through our support team if you are an existing customer, and we'll be happy to help there. Troubleshooting, so just a few bullet points on what you can refer to if you've got any issues. Always check the Splunk _internal index. Any errors from the Okta add-on for Splunk would be logged there. So, I mean, typical errors you might find is if you've got the token wrong, or if you've just made a typo somewhere, it should be pretty obvious once you check the underscore internal index what that is. And that's one of the first places I always look when I'm troubleshooting anything in Splunk, not let alone the Okta add-on, anything in Splunk. I'll always refer to the underscore internal index. It's a very powerful place to see all errors and troubleshoot problems. On the SAML side of things, so when you're setting up single sign-on, yeah, just the typical things really. Check for any typos. SAML's quite sensitive. If you've got a value wrong between one and the other, that can break the entire integration. So just make sure that everything you've entered is correct and you haven't made any typos anywhere. One of the common things I find, and it's not really documented that well, if I'm honest with you, just make sure that your Splunk server date and time is in sync. So you can use something like NTP to do that. SAML again is quite sensitive to dates, making sure that the times are correct. Splunk will throw an error if there are any issues with the date and time. So just be aware that that could be a potential issue there if you have got any out of sync dates and times. And then just finally, just make sure you check the metadata. Sometimes, I mean, it's normally a browser issue. If you paste the metadata in, it doesn't always paste properly. So just double check everything with the metadata and make sure it's all correct. But as long as you follow our blog, you shouldn't have many problems. But again, that doesn't mean to say you won't have any problems. So if you do have any, yeah, just follow these steps here, or obviously get in contact with us, and we'll be able to help you further on that one. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the webinar. So I will move across to questions now and just see if we have had any. Let's have a look here. Okay, yeah, so we've got a few. So the first question here I've got is, what Splunk instance type supports single sign-on? So we support SSO on pretty much any Splunk instance that has a UI, the web UI enabled. So that could be anything. It could be a search head, which is the common use case. It could be a heavy forwarder, and it could also be a search head cluster as well. So you can set up SAML with search head clusters. There is a bit more involved with that, so it's worth referring to the documentation. But yes, we can support SAML on pretty much any Splunk instance that has a UI. So typically that's heavy forwarders and search heads. So yeah, that's basically that. It doesn't, obviously SAML wouldn't be supported on a universal forwarder. It's just it doesn't have a UI to log into, so you don't need SAML on that. How real time is the login from Okta into Splunk is another question I've got. So when you're setting up the data inputs in Splunk, you have the option to set an interval. I don't know if I can show you that actually. If we just go, so if we just look at the add-on, when you're setting up the data inputs, there will be an option to set the interval. So I've set it to 60 seconds. Just be aware as well of the API rate limits in Okta. So every time the Okta add-on collects data, that is essentially an API call into Okta. Okta do have some rate limits in place, so just be aware of that, but you can just configure the intervals as needed. Basically, I could increase this from 60 to 120 seconds, for example, or I could make the Okta group input more frequent. So you have complete flexibility on how often or how real time the login is, and that's completely up to you. That's that question. I think I did get one more question here. I've got, so where can I find more info on what data I can get into Splunk from Okta? So yeah, really I would refer just to the documentation on that one again. So yeah, if you just take a look at the event types really, that will give you the full information on what can be in the system log and first what would be in Splunk. Also, obviously, I think if you have a look at the Splunk base listing, there's documentation here as well around what it can provide. So yeah, you've got things like, yeah, just basically bullet points here. I'm pretty sure in the details you'll see a lot more there as well. But yeah, just basically refer to the documentation. It should be all there. But if you do have any questions like that, any specific questions on what data you can get or what dashboard you might be able to create, just get in contact with us. I'm sure we'll be happy to help out on that one. So that's cool. But yeah, I think that is the last question I've got here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching today.